Yes, I will begin, and I will be talking about Lady Myeongbin Kim, Women in Joseon Dynasty, regarding Buddhism art. This is the agenda of my presentation, and I will begin. The continuation of Buddhism and the development of Buddhist art during the Joseon dynasty, which established a Confucian state, was greatly influenced by the royal family's belief and support of Buddhism. In particular, most of the royal women were devout Buddhist believers and engaged in various Buddhist activities, including the construction and reconstruction of temples, construction of Buddhist statues, paintings, pagodas, temple bells, and others, and the publication of Buddhist sutra. In other words, royal women during the Joseon dynasty were important patrons of Buddhist art. Among the patrons of Buddhist art in the early Joseon dynasty was an indispensable figure, Lady Myeongbin Kim. She frequently is identified in royal Buddhist history from the time she became King Taejong's concubine in 1411 until her death in 1479, and was in the center stage of royal Buddhist activities at that time. This presentation focused on Myeongbin Kim, a representative female patron of Buddhism art in the early Joseon dynasty. This study aims to reveal the background and meaning of the Buddhist artwork commissioned by Myeongbin Kim and to find out the role and significance of Lady Myeongbin Kim as a Buddhist patron of the Joseon royal family. Now I would like to go over the Joseon royal family women Buddhist activities in the 15th century. It can be confirmed that among notable works of Buddhist art, such as Buddhist statues and paintings in the early Joseon dynasty, were produced at the request or support of royal women such as queens, concubines, princesses, and the wives of princes. The Buddhist activities of royal women caused conflict with the Confucian scholars, but also became a driving force in producing and developing stylistically superior Buddhist art by mobilizing painters and craftsmanship belonging to the royal family with their will to worship Buddhism and with financial support. Let us look at the status of Buddhist temples among women of the Joseon royal family in the 15th century, the different Buddhist services when she was active, and also look at what kind of existence and position she had in the royal family and what role she played in the Buddhist world. Due to time constraints, contents regarding royal women's Buddhist practices in the 15th century will be replaced by paper in the booklet. And in this way, it has been confirmed that many royal women from the reign of King Taejo to the reign of King Seongjong were patrons of Buddhist services and practices, and among them, Lady Myeongbin Kim is a notable person who actively supported Buddhism activities from the early Joseon dynasty. As for Lady Myeongbin Kim, the following examples show that she was in a more special position than other concubines in the royal family at that time. We could read in the King Taejong petition that her presence was as large as the queen, and during the reign of King Seongjong, we could see Shin-yun was given a government position at the request of Lady Myeongbin Kim. Also, when King Seongjong returned to the palace after hunting in Mount Acha, he stopped by Myeongbin Palace and gifted her grains. Likewise, Myeongbin Kim was the only queen and concubine who during King Taejong's reign had a large presence and was treated as an elder of the royal family from the reign of King Taejong to King Seongjong, guarding the inner court. In other words, it is presumed that the position and influence of Myeongbin in the royal family was high. Examples include punishing a person who agitated the public and threatened monks, or punishing a monk who produced a book with a forged name of a royal family member. So we could see that she wielded great influence. In this way, Myeongbin Kim served as a bridge between the royal family and the Buddhist community, and also demonstrated the ability to resolve incidents that occurred outside the royal family. She relied on Buddhism during the 50 years she spent alone after King Taejong passed away, and actively participated in Buddhist activities. This can be confirmed because several pieces of Buddhist art she supported and commissioned have survived to today. Now, I would like to go on the different Buddhist art that was commissioned and supported by Lady Myeongbin Kim. She was an active supporter of the creation of Buddhist art in the early Joseon dynasty and was able to achieve Buddhist practices without much difficulty due to her high social status and consequent influence. Starting with 불설 대부모 은중경, great sutra of the Buddha's preaching a deep indebtedness to one's father and mother, and then 상교 정봉 자비 도량 참법, and in 1451, 묘법 영화경, seated Lotus Sutra, and 흑석삭 목조 아미타르 자상, 흑석 temple wooden Amitabha Buddha in 1458, and before 1479 she commissioned gilt bronze seated Sakyamuni statue enshrined in Sujongsa temple as well. As above, we would like to examine the purpose of these commissions and the relationship with the people who commissioned them, as well as the stylistic characteristics of the Buddhist artwork sponsored by Myeongbin Kim. First, you can see 부모 은중경, the 불설대 부모 은중경 태골경, and you can see that it was engraved with text and pictures, and at the end of the sutra there is the record. Myeongbin Kim in 1432 prayed that the king, queen, crown prince for longevity and her grandson Kim are freed from severe misfortunes in life. The purpose of publishing 부모 은중경 is presumed to be her niece Hwang, who was the wife of the crown prince, was fallen from the position in 1429. So in order to console and for better luck. As can be seen from the prayer text, the reason why Myeongbin Kim chose 부모 은중경 among Buddhist sutras seems to be she deeply believed in the sutra and made the donation with the intention of disseminating it and spreading Buddhism to the people. At the end of the 발문, there is indication of a meritorious person, Myeongbin, and Ui-ho participated as an engraver, although there are no confirmed cases of Ui-ho participating as an engraver other than this sutra. He must have been an outstanding engraver of his time in terms of his elaborate engraving skills and being a royal commission. The 부모 은중경 is the first work of sutra commissioned by women during the Joseon dynasty and is significant. That is the earliest 부모 은중경 of the Joseon dynasty. Next is 상교 정봉 자비 도량 천법, and the reason why she commissioned this as the main benefactor 대적공주 in 1447 was that in this case King Taejong's concubine 소해공주 is listed as the 동원시주 or minor benefactor, so it seems that she was deeply involved in Buddhist endeavor with Myeongbin Kim. 소해공주 entered the palace as King Taejong's concubine along with Myeongbin, and she was appointed as the 공주 along with Myeongbin, and both passed away in 1479. Due to this relationship, the two had a special relationship relying on Buddhism for the rest of their lives after King Taejong's death, and it is presumed that they shared the same desire for Myeongbin's Buddhist activities. If you look at the prayer text, the 발원문 of record, you can see she prayed for the 극락 왕생, praying for return to paradise of Myeongbin Kim's parents, younger brother Kim Ho-moon and nephew Kim Jung-eum. King Taejong's concubine 소해공주도 신승공주 정민 lady and King Sejong's concubine Subyong-hong also prepared for their parents' spiritual transition, 영가청도, and she prayed for the long lives of the King Crown Prince Grand Prince Suyang, as well as King Taejong, Queen Wongyong, and Queen Soyeon. The reason why she commissioned this was with Queen Soyeon, who had just passed, Sohon, who has passed away, along with her deceased family members, as well as King Taejong and Queen Wongyong, who she revered. She commissioned it as merit-making exercise for the 극락청도 of everyone. It is thought that it was sponsored by concubines of King Taejong and King Sejong, praying for 영가청도 of the late king, queen, and parents. King Sejong would not have banned the publication of Buddhist scriptures for his parents and wife. Meanwhile, the Hwang 소월헌 정암 participated as the 증명 of the 자리 도량 천법, and he is the person who wrote the preface to 부모 은중경, which was proposed by Lady Myeongbin Kim in 1432. Since she maintained a close relationship with monks as a royal worshipper, it is presumed that 정암, a high priest at that time, participated in the publication of Buddhist scriptures requested by Lady Myeongbin Kim. 1451, 묘법 연화경, and it's called the Lotus Sutra, and she also sponsored and published the Lotus Sutra according to the 발문 written by 순성당 희인. She wanted to help younger generations understand the truth of Buddha and prayed for the long lives of kings and crown princes, 영가천도, of King Taejong, Queen Wongyong, as well as Sejong and Queen Soyeon, and 극락왕생 for her father. And you can see that she also wished for the best for her mother and past relatives. Noble Lady Choi, King Sejong's concubine, and worked with Myeongbin Kim for the publication of 자비 도량 천법. As the granddaughter of Myeongbin Kim's aunt, she was another relative who entered the royal family following Hwang Kim. It is presumed that the two remained close, studied Buddhist scriptures, and practiced Buddhism together. The reason for their commissioning was to mark the one-year anniversary of the king of King Sejong by enshrining the sutras in honor of not only King Sejong but also King Taejong, Queen Wongyong, Queen Soyeon, who passed away before him, as well as her parents. 1451, 불설 대부모 은중경. She commissioned this as a 대시주, and this is called 삼경합부 because there's the 불결 장수 멸의 호 제동자 다란이경 and 약사 열의 본 원경 who make up a triple. The characteristic of this publication is that the first edition published a drawing of new transformation of the traditional form of the 부모 은중경, and pictures occupy a large and diverse portion of the page, and judging by the realistic description, elegant brushwork, and elaborate engraving, it appears to have been produced by skilled craftsmen. And with this, we can see that it seems to have significantly improved. With this, we have looked at the 4 works of Buddhist sutras published with the main patronage from Lady Myeongbin Kim. Next, I would like to cover Buddhist statues commissioned by Myeongbin Kim. The Buddhist statues created at the request of Myeongbin Kim currently include the wooden-seated Amitabha Buddha statue of Hwang Temple in Gyeongju and the gilt bronze-seated Buddhist statue enshrined in the octagonal 5-story stone pagoda of Sujongsa Temple in Namyangju. The 2 Buddha statues are representative works of Buddhist sculpture in the early Joseon dynasty, and we will examine the purpose of their creation and the people who participated, as well as the characteristics. First, 1458, Gyeongju 흑석사 목조 아미타 열의 좌상. So, in this statue, various 복장물 and 복장지 were discovered, confirming the reason for the construction of the statue, donor, and the time of the construction. And the 보관문, which recommends participation as a donor in the construction of the Buddha statue, and the 복장기 included while constructing the Buddha statue, state that in 1457, with the purpose of creating and enshrining Amitabha Buddha, Avalokitesvara Bodhisattva and Kisrugarba Bodhisattva at Popcheonsa Temple on Mount Cheongam, the monk Songchul presided over the work and mentions that 275 donors, including Eubin, Kwon, Myeongbin Kim, Prince Hyoryong, Anmengum, participated in creating the Amitabha triad. The craftsmen involved were Lee Mengum painters, Lee Jung-son and Lee Hung-son, gold leaf craftsmen, Lee Song-san, Gaksu craftsmen, Hwang So-bong, and Somok Yang Il-bong. You can see that in the period of the creation, it prayed for the long life of the king, queen, and crown prince, the well-being of the royal family, and the peace of the country. However, it is thought that there may have been an opportunity for royal worshippers in the early Joseon dynasty to create a Buddha statue together. At the time Buddha statue was created, it was during the reign of King Sejo, and the royal family was in an unstable state as many people were killed, punished, or exiled due to Danjong's usurpation of the throne and the movement to restore Danjong. Accordingly, it is thought that the Amitabha Triad Buddha statue was created with the intention of restoring peace to the royal family and the country through Buddhist devotion and comforting the souls of the dead. Eubin Kwon, who appears for the first time in the Balwonmun, the record, was the person who rebuilt Boryong Geumgang-am Hermitage in 1412 and created the stone Maitreya Buddha statue and built the Sujongsa Stupa in 1439 and was a representative Buddhist woman along with Myeongbin in the early Joseon dynasty. Therefore, Eubin and Myeongbin, as concubines of the previous king, gathered their will and mobilized the royal family and many donors and promoted large-scale Buddhist ceremonies. In addition, 부모 은중경 as one of the Amitabha Buddha statue 복장 materials was published in 1432 by Myeongbin Kim. At the end of the record, 보관문, there is a statement that King Soljin and Ongme made donations for the restoration of the spirit family, or 영가천도. Therefore, we can see that Buddhist practice also contains the purpose of praying for the peace of those who have passed away. Next, 15th century 남양주 수종사 8각 5층 석탑 봉황 금동 석자 열의 좌상. 30 Buddha statues were discovered inside the octagonal 5-story stone pagoda of Sujongsa Temple. Buddha statues can be divided into 2 groups according to their production date. One is a group of Buddhist statues enshrined in the pagoda by King Seongjong's concubines Sukjong-hong, Sukyong-jong, and Sugwon Kim, and in 1493. And the other is a group of Buddha statues requested by Queen Inmok, the second wife of King Seonjo, in 1628. What is noteworthy here is gilt bronze-seated Shakyamuni Buddha statue, which was repaired by concubines of King Seongjong in 1493 and enshrined in the base layer of the stone Buddha. The lower silver-plated Buddha statue at the intaglio engraved Patron Lady Myeongbin Kim. Therefore, through inscriptions and record, it has been revealed that the gilt bronze-dated Buddha statue commissioned and supported by King Taejong's concubine Myeongbin Kim was repaired by King Sejong's concubines in 1493. When the Buddha statue was repaired and the Bogamu was put in was the time when Myeongbin Kim, the benefactor, had already passed away. Therefore, Buddha statue was created in the ladies before 1479 when Myeongbin Kim was still alive. Following the creation of the wooden Amitabha Buddha statue at Hunguksa Temple in 1458, Myeongbin Kim chose to create a Buddha statue as her last Buddhist service. However, it is presumed that the small Buddha statue was commissioned and built not to enshrine at the Buddha statue in the temple hall, but to spend the rest of her life worshipping the Buddha in her personal circle. The reason why the concubines of King Seongjong renovated and enshrined the Buddha statue was Myeongbin Kim, that she had revered in 1493 is because she was an influential figure as an elder in the inner court and a worshipper, so it would have been meaningful for the concubines of later kings to repair and enshrine her Buddha statue to quietly and safely carry out a Buddha service. Next, we will look at the characteristics of the wooden seated Amitabha Buddha statue at Hunguksa Temple and the gilt bronze seated Buddha statue at Sujongsa Temple. The Hunguksa Temple Buddha statue and the Sujongsa Temple Buddha statue are precious works that reflect the Buddhist sculpture style of the time, with few existing Buddhist statues from the early Joseon dynasty. The two Buddha statues have new features that appear under the influence of Ming Dynasty Tibetan style. It is because you can see the appearance of the Jeongsangeju above the head, a slim body and a long waist of the Buddha at Hunguksa Temple, and with the body composition that is angular, and the chest nipples of the Buddha at Sujongsa Temple. The Ming Dynasty Tibetan style appears mainly in Buddhist statues from the mid-15th century onwards in Joseon. Therefore, it is presumed that the construction date of the Buddhist statue at Sujongsa Temple is after the 1450s, when the Ming Dynasty style began to appear in earnest, but before 1479 when Lady Myeongbin Kim passed away. As such, 흑석사 Buddhist statues and the Sujongsa Buddhist statues commissioned by Myeongbin are representative works that demonstrate the high level of royal Buddhist activities and establishment of a new Buddhist style due to influence of Ming Dynasty Buddhist statues. Now let's look at meaning of the Buddha service originated by Myeongbin Kim and the meaning of Myeongbin Kim as supporter of the Buddhist art in the early Joseon dynasty. First, the meaning of Myeongbin Kim's publication of Buddhist sutras. She continued the publication of her Buddhist sutras steadily from 1432 when she began a Buddhist practice in earnest to 1451. The publication of royal sutras in the 15th century was carried out mostly by royal men, including Taejo Sejong, King Sejo, Prince Hwang from the reign of King Taejo to the reign of King Sejo. In the late 15th century, during the reign of King Yeon, Seongjong and Yeon royal women such as Queen Jung-hee, Queen In-su, and Queen Jung-yon led the Buddhist activities. Before royal women became more active in publishing Buddhist sutras, were mainly men in the royal family published sutras. The fact that Myeongbin Kim was active in publishing sutras gave us an idea of her status in the royal family and her deep Buddhist devotion. Also, she mainly published these sutras to produce and disseminate Buddhist sutras in large quantities, rather to publish Buddhist or to patron Buddhist paintings or statues from specific temples so that it can spread Buddhist ideas to more people. And the purpose of Buddha Sutra was to pray for the souls of the departed king, queen, and parents, and she was able to justify his immortality in the name of Confucian filial piety. Secondly, the meaning of Myeongbin Kim's creation of the Buddhist statue. Hunguk Temple's wooden-seated Amitabha Buddha statue is a Buddhist statue that was supported by representative Buddhists of the royal family, including King Taejong's concubine, Ui Bin-kwon, and King Taejong's son, Prince Hwang. It is presumed that the country at the time where the society was unstable due to King Sejo's accession to the throne, Buddhist activities were initiated by a prayer for the royal family peace and deceased going to paradise. In particular, Ibin and Myeongbin were the concubines of King Taejong and represented women of the early Joseon dynasty royal family who converted to Buddhism, and this work is very meaningful. Subsequently, she donated and created the gilt bronze-seated Sakamuni Buddha, discovered in the Octagonal 5-story stone pagoda of Sujongsa Temple. It is a small 15-centimeter Buddha statue, and it is presumed that it was created for her own use as a personal Buddha rather than to be enshrined in a temple hall. Afterwards, in 1493, the concubines of King Seongjong came together to repair a Buddha statue and enshrined it in the stone pagoda of Sujongsa Temple. Since the statue of great significance due to the status and influence of Myeongbin Kim. Third, the meaning of Myeongbin Kim as a supporter of Buddhist art in the early Joseon dynasty. She is a woman who led Buddhist efforts since the early Joseon dynasty and can be said to be a leading figure. As a concubine of the previous king and an elder in the royal family who was credited with nurturing the kings of her later generations, she was respected and protected by the king and other women in the inner court. With this social status and background, she appears to have no major difficulties in believing in and practicing Buddhist practice. Accordingly, craftsmanship with outstanding skills participated in the Buddhist activities, and the Buddhist art originated by Myeongbin Kim is outstanding and is important in understanding the style of Buddhist sutra and sculpture in the 15th century. She interacted with monks, had high-ranking monks participate in her Buddhist activities, and played a role as a mediator between the royal family and the Buddhist community. Therefore, Myeongbin Kim was a supporter of Buddhism and Buddhist art in the early Joseon dynasty, and she is significant in that she was a woman who influenced the development of the Buddhist community and Buddhist art during the Joseon dynasty. This is my conclusion. So far, we have looked at the content, purpose, and characteristics of Lady Myeongbin Kim and the Buddhist art she originated and pointed out the meaning of Buddhist works. And Myeongbin Kim was a representative Buddhist worshipper of the royal family in the early Joseon dynasty and a supporter of Buddhist art. During her 60-year reign, she continued to practice Buddhism through her strong Buddhist faith, influence, and economic power. Her Buddhist activities would have served as a role model for later generations of royal women and contributed greatly to the succession and development of Buddhist art during the Joseon dynasty. Through this presentation, we were able to clearly understand the role of royal women in the early Joseon dynasty and the influence they had on Buddhism and Buddhist art by examining the works from a perspective of a woman named Myeongbin Kim. I hope that this study will serve as a foundation for more diverse and active research in the future with an expanded perspective on the roles of women in the Joseon royal family and Buddhist art. Thank you very much.